So let it be written, so let it be done. This is Tabletop Terrors, and we're going to generate an encounter today, but first, a Tabtarian toast. May you mend the first break. May you kill the first snake. And may you conquer everything you undertake. Slancha. Got my ginger bubblegum rockstar in honor of my brother James. So we're going to jump right in. The name of this is Instrument of Death. And what I want to do is use an adventure kit to create what I thought was a cool concept. Instrument of Death is literally a huge musical instrument used by a titan, long buried and frozen. And the players kind of get stuck inside this thing. And we'll make this lean and mean. This will be a quick stream, something that you can plug into your game right away. If you're wondering what an adventure kit is, and if you want to find out more, check out the dungeon below, which is what we call the comments. Click on it. We're kickstarting an adventure kit, Oath of the Frozen King. You can click on that. Check it out now. You won't be disappointed. But in the back of the adventure kit, there's something called a toolbox. And it's my favorite thing about the adventure kit. I'm going to use the toolbox right now to generate this Instrument of Death. So I'll set this in our campaign world of Dragon Grin, where evil has won. But you can set this in any campaign world. I like the idea that this huge being known as a Titan, think like Protoss in StarCraft, but fantasy. So tech-based to a degree. But what would a musical instrument like that, like what would it look like? What would it do? What would its innards be? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's generate this thing. I'm back here in the encounter generator in the adventure kit. And the first thing I want to do is I want to say that when I use roll tables, I always use them to inform whatever my choice is. So I like to come up with a concept first, usually, and then put the roll table through the filter of what my concept is. That way it stays in line and, I don't have anything weird and squirrely. But the way that this has worked is that the encounter terrain comes first in the roll table. So I kind of have this idea, knowing what I want. Let's roll. All right, a 3. So uneven, jagged flooring of icy stones. So to me, the icy stones are going to be the pickup in this huge sort of electronic guitar kind of instrument. So these icy stones will be all throughout, and just kind of thinking on the fly, I want to make it so that if the adventurers find a way to power these stones, the ice will melt and they can get through. So that's kind of going to be something that I'll keep in the back of my mind. They can turn this thing on. Now let's roll up some encounter features. Let's see here. An 8. Okay, glowing veins of magically potent minerals. So to me, this is the wiring. Inside this huge Titan electric guitar, you've got these pickups, and then you've got the wiring. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to let that be the pathway that the adventurers can travel, essentially to get around the room quickly. So what I'll do is I'll make those really big, like sort of, what's the word? I can't think of it. It's the thing where it's depressed places where statues sit, that thing. Not inlets. Anyway, I'm going to make those all throughout the whole room so that players can scurry around there quickly and move around. So the final thing I want to do is make some encounter events. What's going to be happening in this huge instrument as we have the adventurers try to turn it on to melt the ice to get through? Reliefs. It's called a relief. All right, a 2. Awesome. So the room begins flooding with thick snow. So what happens is the adventurers come into this thing. I want there to be this sort of high-pitched whine, just like they are walking into essentially this electric guitar that hasn't been turned on in a long, long time. So I can play that up with different obelisks in the center of the room, these pickups, these stones, and just make it a really interesting encounter. But right there, I have everything I need to get started. And then throughout the week, I can use my idea and say, well, what kind of monsters? Do I want to throw a trap in there? and so on. But that's the general quick basics of how you can roll up an encounter literally in about 5 minutes. This is a live stream, so let's go to the chat. Let's see what everyone is talking about. All right. Matt is here from A Fistful of Dice. Nathan Thurston. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's see here. Drunkens and Dragons is here. Jeremy Lilly is here. Let's see here. Josh Hull says, Titans equals Protoss. To these instruments, they're versions of pylons. If that's the case, we need to construct more than one. We can always construct more pylons. Need more Vespian gas for my amp. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to the trap generator because I want this to be a trap-centric sort of thing. They're diffusing this huge bomb, so to speak. And so we have a trap generator right here inside the kit. So the first table in the trap generator is the trap's origins. I really don't need that. I'm going to roll on it for fun just to show you what the table looks like. Okay, so an 8. It was built as part of the original structure. So that's perfect. So to me, this trap is, it can be a few different things. One, it can be set up by creatures who came later and didn't realize it's a huge musical instrument, or the inner workings of the instrument itself, much like a clock with turning gears, appears like a trap or acts like a trap in the way that it functions normally. So you can kind of go either way. I think I would probably do the thing acts like a trap just by the way that it functions normally. When you crank this thing on and the dials start heating up, what I think is they have to melt enough of the ice to get out, but not so much of the ice that it floods the room with slush and that they can't get out. So let's roll a D6 on the next trap table. It's what kind of save do they need? All right, perfect. So a good old-fashioned deck save to dodge deftly. So this trap is going to need deck save. So what I would probably do is make it so that to move throughout, you need to give me a dex save anytime you move more than 5 feet. Now that can get a little cumbersome, so I might rethink that on the fly, but my thought process is I want to make movement the thing that I'm taxing, okay? So is that a little much? Yes, but the players are seriously going to think about, okay, do I want to move around? Unless they want to move through these veins. So perhaps to move through the center of the room, I have these particular, like these gears and these different things going, but you can move along at about half speed through these veins. And then what are the trap's consequences? Well, it's a cold trap, so I can pretty much say it's going to be cold, but I want to get a little interesting here. So let's use a D12, and we'll roll on this table, which is the trap's consequences. Now, there's a damage type as well as an optional conditions. So let's do that. All right, a 7. Perfect. So necrotic damage. So to me, this thing, as it works and functions, it actually drains the life force out of whatever is nearby. So that's the electricity that it uses. It uses something in our world called imminence. So this is an imminence-fueled musical instrument. Now, what I would do to do a cool thing with the map, I'd probably pull up a picture of like a Rickenbacker bass and kind of break it up in Photoshop and make like a headstock and like, so that not literally, but the players would have this kind of idea that it was a huge musical instrument that was like a Titan's lute. And then finally in the kit, I have all of my save DCs and attack bonuses that I can dial in depending on how high of an adventurer level we have going on. So we have, we'll say it's about a 5th level trap. So I've got all my stuff right here. Boom. So there's your encounter. That is the adventure kit. I mean, that was probably 5 or 6 minutes, and I could go on and on. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to check the chat one more time, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to generate one monster that I can keep in the middle of this thing to keep the players busy. Let's see here. Jster 1085 says, love your vids, man. Thanks for making them. Keep them coming. Haha, listening to this in class. The teacher's asking what the heck I'm watching. Tell me what subject it is, and then I'll fake and I'll pretend like I'm tutoring you. Let's see here. Josh Hull says, if it's necrotic energy, maybe it's maintained by the creature like Modrons or construct-like creatures. Let's do it. Absolutely, let's do it. So let's roll up some constructs that are dormant, but they're tasked like ancient nanites to keep this thing running. Okay, so as you know, how we might use just basic, luthiers to come in and tune up and make sure the bridge is right. The Titans created these constructs to make sure their instrument was always in tune and that everything was working perfectly. So when these things awaken, they're going to attack the players probably because they're a foreign force, but not because they're evil. And I kind of like that element of it too. So we'll just knock this out quickly. The first thing we'll do, I don't have to roll on the monster type table because I know these are constructs, but we do have some cool descriptions theming this and skinning this for Oath of the Frozen King, which takes place in a very icy region. So I'll read you that. The dark stone that these creatures are hewn from was taken from the maw of black ice itself, which is the lair of the Frozen King. So these things are made from the mountain itself. And we'll put some cool blue streaks of Titan tech, etc. So what's the monster's behavior? Well, I'm going to roll a d10 because they're malfunctioning. So they're not going to be doing their job the way they were programmed to. It's been millennia. So, all right, so a 9. Sardonic and biting. They issue an endless wave of taunts and insults. So they're malfunctioning. So these constructs are, and I imagine it would be even be in like a different language, but that sort of that body language of sarcasm comes through. So imagine this. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a really interesting encounter here because we've got these sort of sardonic constructs who are basically sneering and looking down at the adventurers as though they're bacteria that they're cleaning out of this musical instrument. And so let's go ahead and put some mechanics to these things. We've got a table that lets me decide what are they? Are they minions? Are they skirmishers, vanguards? Is it a nemesis? To me, I want to make these things well built, so I'm going to go with a skirmisher. What does that mean? It means that I have a column that I can read. They have about this many hit points, roughly this armor class, and roughly this attack bonus. I'm going to go with an 11 as far as hit points. So something on the lowish end. I'm going to give them a nice armor class of like 11. And then as far as the attack bonus, I'm just going to give them something simple like a +3. So I know 11, 11. So 11 hit points, 11 to hit them, and then it's a +3. Now, how much damage do these things do? Well, it depends. If you're using 5th edition, there's something called bounded accuracy, which makes this very, very easy. It means that no matter what the monster's threat level is, by level, they typically do a certain amount of damage by and large. So for me, let's go ahead and make this again, keeping with the skirmisher, around 5th level. And this is a really easy table to use in this toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and say this thing does about 8 damage. Okay. Now, if you want to make it so they hit super hard, you can do 11 damage to kind of keep it across the board. But just remember, 11 damage is quite a bit for 5th level characters if you're going to have multiples of these things. So yeah, I would say those are my modrons. Those are my roadies. That's what I'd probably write on my sheet as a DM. I'd write roadies, Titan roadies. One final thing, I want to add some buffs to these guys. Let's make this a little more unique. And I can go down the list of quick buffs we can add. I like the idea that they have regeneration similar to a lot of constructs. So let's go ahead and do that. They regain hit points at the beginning of each turn. I'd probably pop a D4 just to keep things kind of steadily doing this. So they only have 11 hit points, but they can kind of climb quickly. They can get almost half their hit points back in one roll. And there you go. So that is the encounter that I generated using the toolbox. This is Instrument of Death, a literal huge musical instrument of a Titan. If you like this encounter, if you like this style of encounters, you definitely want to check out our Kickstarter. It's called Oath of the Frozen King. It's an adventure kit, and the link is down there below in the dungeon. Click on it. You can pledge for as little as $1, all the way up to $50, and you can get every single supplement that Absolute Tabletop, our publishing company, has ever made. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to end it here. Be sure to subscribe. If you like this, crush the subscribe button, and thanks for all your unending support. Until next time, may your dice roll high.